Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 133 on the Carr Brothers Show. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the three Carr brothers.
And we're very, very pleased to have Jack MacDougall in the studio with us. Jack is a very well-known New Brunswicker, involved in politics for many years. Actually, you were the executive director of the Liberal Party, the founder of the New Brunswick Green Party, and a businessman with the taxi company in St. John that you owned, and you revitalized the Imperial Theatre with a whole slew of people. Yeah. And but one of the things we want to talk at the very top is another very interesting topic too. That's been 50 years in the making. So
yes.
We're very pleased to have you on the show, Jack.
I'm very happy to be here. I'm really happy to be here.
And what's the latest that's going on in your life here today?
Well, first of all, I want to point out Michael Staples wrote a beautiful an article on LinkedIn, and Michael has been a writer for many, many years, written many books. And finally, after 50 years of lobbying different people to look at a story I was very much involved in more than 50 years ago, just under 50 years ago. And it was an ironic story. It was my employee, John Kenny, was a driver of mine, and he was accused of killing 21 people. And I believed, and I still believe, he's 100% innocent. And what happened was, and I can still remember the morning, and everybody up until that day was talking about fire. There had been many fires. There was a fire and another jail fire, and the prisoners had set fires, and all the prisoners were shifted over to the St. John County Jail. And it was 100 years to the day of the great St. John fire, which wiped out 40%. So we had a community awareness of fire. In fact, my friend Susan Bate and Costas Alvarez wrote an amazing play, From These Ashes, which was about looking at a classroom of children and how the fire had impacted each of them and how they strengthened up and pulled through. So
in 1977.
So in 1977, 100 years to the day, I'm coming in, they're talking about the fire, and I thought, oh my gosh, enough with the fire. Switch channels, fire. And the next thing you know, I come in, and then you realize they're talking about 21 guys were killed last night in the St. John jail. And I'm like, what? And then I come into the office, and then Val, the dispatcher, says, have you heard the news? And I said, yeah, 21 guys, and they caught the murderer. She said, well, what else do you know about the story? And I said, well, what else is there to know? And she said, guess who they're accusing? John Kenny, my driver, guy I hung out with every day. I love this guy. So anyway, the next thing you know, Tony Allman is calling me. That's his lawyer. And he said, what do you know about John Kenny? And I said, he's one of my best drivers. He turns in his envelopes. He's a great guy. I know his wife, Sherry. You know, they have a 2-year-old Chance. And even though they're in-laws, you know, that type of thing, right? So, yeah, he's a great guy as far as I know. What happened? And anyway, well, he's being accused of starting this fire, which killed 20. I said, what the? Anyway, he said he needs the character witness to go on the stand on Monday morning. Would you be willing to do it?
Wow.
Yeah, and I said, well, what's the chance if they're accusing him of killing 21 people that they're going to let him go? You know, he said, not much. Anyway, so I did. And I went in there with my uniform. We walked through those 25 families, and I went on the stand, and I told him, if he comes out, if you let him go, Judge, I will definitely make sure he's got a job, and I'll be responsible as much as I can be. Judge, let him go. So now we're living this experience. Now I find out what happened.
So let him go on bail because he's
yeah, they let him go on bail. Never spend another night in jail. So what happened was his wife Sherry was working at the Admiral Beatty Hotel as a waitress. John was shifted, I think he got shifted working for me, or something happened. I don't know if he was working that night, but somewhere along the line they had a thing. So John went to the Admiral Beatty to work out with Sherry what they're going to do about their baby Chance, who needed to be babysat because Mom wanted to go to bingo or something like that. Right. So the guy, Neil Wong, who owned the Admiral Beatty Hotel, who was Chinese and didn't understand English, thought it was a customer harassing his waitress. So he called the cops. So anyway, they kissed and made up, and John went out onto the street. Meanwhile, the cops came, and they tackled him from behind, threw him over the car. Then he resisted, started calling them every name in the book, and they cuffed him and brought him down. Now, this is important.
Right.
When they brought him in, they did a very thorough search of him, removed everything that they were supposed to remove, and they were looking specifically for fire or matches, lighters, anything like that, which was not allowed in the jail. Now, he was allowed to smoke. They were allowed in 1977 to smoke. So they let him keep his cigarettes.
But they put him in the jail.
But they put him into his cell.
Right.
Now, John's still irate, and he's going, what the F, you know, I want my lawyer. But meanwhile, the jail was full of 21 people that had been transferred from the other one, okay?
Right.
So they're like, shut the F up and whatever, and the guys come down and say, if you don't shut up, we're going to do an extraction. You're not going to like that, right? So, but John wouldn't shut up. So finally, I think they suit up and they're coming down, but he calms down, everything's cool, but he's coming to the padded cell. So they do a search of him again. They said, make sure he doesn't have anything on. Now he's got his cigarette in his hand like this, okay? Now he goes to the padded cell. The guy who's in charge of the padded cell says, search him. 3 searches, okay?
No fire.
No fire. They throw him in. It's 7 feet deep. That means like from here to the wall, actually closer, I think, probably. But anyway, and he went like that, okay? And the butt jammed into the padding where it had the hell kicked out. It was all frayed and everything.
Yeah.
It was up 4 inches, is what every prisoner did. So like he's in there for like 15 minutes or something like that, and then the thing starts puffing, smoking, and it's rising up, and then it goes poof. And now he's screaming for his life, and he's screaming in the thing, and finally the jailer comes, and he sees in, and he does the only thing a human could do is he opened the door. And when he did, the oxygen rushed in, caused a billowous explosion of black soot, and just the jailer pulled the fire alarm, ran for the door. John crawled along and was rescued by the firefighters maybe 2 minutes later before he passed out. Then he was rushed to the hospital. He was in there all night screaming, the cops, the ambulances, and they're just going morgue, 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 morgue. The whole hospital was covered in soot, nurses, doctors, everything. And then they come in to John the next day, and they do a search of his clothing. And guess what? They find a package of matches in his pocket. Guess what? Not one match was removed from the card of matches, nor were there any water stains on that card of matches, which surely there would have been had he have been hosed down.
So brand new pair of
Someone put a brand new package of matches in there and forgot to pull one out. Okay? Now, my thing is this. The whole case hinged on whether it was an accident or intentional. Okay? So, it comes down to reasonable doubt. Now, their reasonable doubt is he was the only one in there, and they had one witness that said only a lit match could do this. Meanwhile, 6 weeks later, who was a hockey star from St. John? His whole family burned to death when his mother fell asleep on a couch and the cigarette fell in the thing, and the whole house burned down. Gordy, what's his name, from St. John. He was playing for the Islanders at the time. Anyway, so that's their reasonable doubt. They didn't find one match at the scene. So John had to be, while he was doing this, make sure I get all the evidence, that managed to get through 3 body searches. So my question is, it's totally reasonable doubt that a package of matches could have ever made it through 3 searches. It's totally reasonable that cigarette, you could throw 500 cigarettes into a forest and never start a forest fire, and do it on the wrong day in the right conditions and it will start.
Right.
And that day it started. Okay? And he served 5 years in prison.
So he was found guilty?
He was found guilty. Yeah. Now the reason he was found guilty and why I want to talk about that today, is because the whole community was aroused by arson from the previous jailers, from the history of fire and the damage it can do, all of which was, we can't take this anymore. It's up to you to do something about it. Bill McCarroll was, he didn't close it. He let Stephen Wood do it, which was his assistant, which made me feel like Bill McCarroll actually thought he was innocent. But anyway, Justice Hugh McCracken, he didn't even, on the guilty verdict, let John go to jail. He said, no, we're going to wait for your appeals. They had a trial for him for the event of causing a disturbance. Judge Nave George, 100% innocent. Should have never been in there in the first place. Okay? But he's a taxi driver. And then when the other murder took place in New Brunswick, that's when I felt, hey, if they can do that for him, they can take another look at John Kenny, right? Just because he's a taxi driver doesn't mean he's not worth taking a hard look at whether or not that was reasonable. And to me, they put an innocent man away, they destroyed his life, and if we could find a ray of light anyway, I think we should do it.
So why now, after all these years, are you bringing it up again? And I've read the article by Michael Staples just last week, and it's a bill, C-40, is it? That's.
I'm just learning about it.
It's a national bill in
Parliament?
National bill, yeah.
Okay.
It's a national thing that would
Miscarriage of Justice?
Miscarriages of Justice
Committee,
something like that.
Okay.
So I'm actually sent an email to what's her name to see if isn't that awful? Sorry. Anyway,
it's okay.
I play poker with her husband. Anyway, I'm having a brain freeze. But anyway, I remember Parliament, and just to try and find out what the status of that committee is.
Jenica.
Jenica. Okay, I remember Parliament.
Awful.
And what the status is.
Sorry, Jenica. I guess you're not going to help me now, are you?
So the status of that bill of the Miscarriage of Justice Commission, there's going to be a Miscarriage of Justice Commission. You feel you could apply to that committee, that commission?
Yeah, but look, this isn't the first time. The problem for me is I have no standing, right? I have standing as an observer, right? Like, I took him to the trial every day. I went to the trial every day, took him home for supper. You know, we all gathered, you know, and like, we thought we were walking out that day 100%. We just thought this thing's over. I had reservations, you know, we were going to party. Yeah.
So he was sentenced, and then 5 years, and then he appealed. And
he did. So that took another 6 or 7 months,
and that wasn't successful.
There was no Tony Allman. Yeah, there's something like this is. I kept thinking Tony gave a brilliant defense. He really did. He tore everybody apart. But he had a British way about him. He's British. And they're not trying to say because he was very good, but he didn't put any of that, you know, gas in the engine that makes you want to, you know, understand what's going on. So he didn't get in there, whereas I think the other guys did, and I think it was a battle of minds.
So he served 5 years. How long was he sentenced? And
5 years. I drove him home. Yeah.
And what was the reaction of the public when he was sentenced and found guilty? Sentenced for 5 years. I think
by this point there was a lot of people feeling, after he was found guilty, that there was a miscarriage of justice. That this was. He never, ever... Now, we did get a few threats. I got a shotgun through the window one night. But other than that, we got some threats because some people really thought he did it. Right? And they lost family. I mean, it was tragic.
21 people.
Yeah, 21 people. And one father let his kid stay in jail to teach him a lesson. You know, another wife called her friend, the cop, to pick him up because she was afraid he'd have a beer and he was going to put him in jail overnight.
Well, he would have perished in that fire as well if the jailer hadn't left the door open and ran. If he would have closed it and locked it, he'd have been cooked.
Well. So he served 5 years. Then what happened? He got out.
He got out.
And then was his family
Never saw him
still,
again?
family still here? Or
What?
Was his family still here? Or did they go?
No, they split, I think, and they're long gone.
We don't know if he's living now.
Yes, he is. I do know that, but I can't find him. I can't locate him.
Like still in St. John area?
He is, because I was playing poker one night and somebody said, "Oh yeah, I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago." I said, "Can you give me a number?" Or he's somewhere in a rooming house or something. I said, and they didn't know where, but I'm like, okay, I'm not tracking him down. This isn't his story. This is my story. I am a witness. I want to take what I saw as a miscarriage of justice. Like even talking to John, if he says, something like, John might have 50 other issues to sprinkle in there, like the jailers didn't treat me right, the food was lousy, the cops were pigs and this and that. It's not about that. It's about reasonable doubt. Could that cigarette have started that fire through smoldering or anything like that? And why would a man who never spent a minute in jail in his life light himself up in a box? Well, I mean, who are you protesting? Yourself? Are you really suicidal? I mean, there's better ways to go than cooking yourself alive in a box.
So you've kind of spoken about this. It bothered you all these years. And
I've written about it. I've spoken about it. Anytime I have a lawyer, I try to have a freebie on him.
So now Michael Staples has done written an article about it.
Yeah, so Michael Staples, the guy who followed through.
To get it, shine some light on it and whatnot.
I play poker with Don McPherson. I've mentioned it 5 or 6 times.
Right.
Yeah, it's a cool story.
So are you looking to get it reopened or get someone to be the Minister of Justice or someone to look at it? Or are you looking to write about it, write a book
that's probably
about
what the commission would recommend. If the commission did hear it, they would recommend to the Minister of Justice
Actually,
to have another look at it.
I don't know.
I thought about writing a book about it, and it would have been the next one for me. But look, that book cost me $8 to print, $20 to sell, and the store wants 45%. You can't make any money, and you lose money. And plus, I hate peddling books. You should read this. This is so good. I wrote it.
So you've written to Jenica Atwin,
Yeah.
our member of parliament, just to see what the status of that commission is now.
To have a meeting with her
Right.
to talk about
that's
what
fair
would be
enough.
the next 2 or 3 steps, and give her a good history.
About the miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
Commission.
Now, do you think it's worth waiting until after the next federal election to see who's?
No, I don't think it really has much to do with politics, really.
No, but I mean, the
liberal and
commission wouldn't
conservative.
sit until the next sitting of the House of
well,
Commons. But
I
it would
think
be still good to get the story in front of her.
I think, truthfully, just this kind of awareness, right? Like just people saying, okay, we'll percolate just around the fact that we're applying to something somewhere. Why are we applying? Well, this is what we did. Oh, really? Oh, let me tell this. Let's see if we can get this thing going.
Yeah. It's
And
how you build
see,
momentum.
and they just are always going to default, well, the jury made up their mind and all that. And it's like, you always hear about poisoned juries, right? Like they put in for a move for a different venue because the community's too much biased. I mean, geez, for the Olin one, they had to open up the arena and interview 50,000 people to make a jury of 12, which was ridiculous. It was smoke and mirrors, in my opinion. But anyway, but it was. That's what they did to get to a jury. Now, in our community, in our trial, 21 families lost a member of the family. Now, think of the cross-pollination of the families, the cousins, the uncles, and all of that, and had been prepped in their mind from the jail fire, which preceded them, from people who did intentionally start fires. And that's why the jail was actually packed to 21 that night. Otherwise, it's a drunk tank for overnight DUIs. Right?
Wow.
So Well, that's an introduction to us.
It is a great introduction to that, and we hope it works out really, we get to shine a light on it and get some discussion about it, and maybe you can move it to the next level.
It would be great if we did. It would be awesome.
Well, we're glad that came up and that we discussed this, and there's more to it. Then we'll be following this story and keep us posted.
If we can nudge the ball down the road a little bit, and somebody says in power and in a position of importance says, this does take another look-see. Yeah. Look at all the people we have done a second look at. Yeah. The Marshall case and all this. And here's this little thing down. It's like, oh, that was 50 years ago. Who cares? Who cares? If he had been a person of any degree of reputation, it would have been an outrage. It was a taxi driver. It was just a write-off. That's all it was.
Yep.
Well, it's good that you're passionate to stand up for this and get it reviewed.
Yeah. I think if you were, let's say you were somebody of wealth and means,
some stature,
you would have had 2 or 3 lawyers there. Yep. You would have had psychologists. You would have had proof that you can start a fire with a cigarette, and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Right? Scientific data.
Wow. Yeah. They would have never convicted anybody on that evidence. Anybody else.
Well, on that, let's take a break.
Okay.
And we got Jack MacDougall with us. We've just been bombarded with this 1977 story that we're going to get to the bottom of, or at least keep in touch on, and we'll be right back.
Hello there, welcome back to the Carr Brothers. It's episode 133. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the 3 Carr brothers.
Well, we're very pleased to have Jack MacDougall with us. We've had a great discussion of a case from a little under 50 years ago, in 1977 fire. So we'll follow that more. And let's switch gears some now to politics.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, politics.
That's a topic.
Yes.
Just a little bit here. You were you worked in Frank McKenna's in the Premier's office back in the day, and the executive director of the Liberal Party a bit later, and ran for the Liberal leadership when Sean Graham won in 2002,
right?
And you're also the founder of the New Brunswick Green Party, and,
right?
So that's quite a number of years of being an organizer and working into the ridings and recruiting candidates and things like that. And now let's fast forward to 2025.
Oh yeah.
What's your perspective of provincial and federal politics these days?
Well, we just went through the provincial one. I was very sorry. I don't say sorry. I for Higgs. I felt bad that he lost for himself. I didn't know much about what was going on with him. I'm really interested, of course, now fascinated with the federal leadership, just observing it and writing a little bit about it, and maybe trying to influence the outcome. I'm really actually, and I've never met her, I've never spoken with her or anything, but by my analysis, I really think it's time for Chrystia Freeland, without a question.
Oh. God, really?
Yeah, I do. I know. Go for it. You can have your opinion, but let me set it up.
We want to hear. I want to hear more about what you're thinking. That's why. I'm
excellent.
surprised, but
no.
Is she not seen as the kind of an inner circle of Trudeau?
She says not.
Well, okay. Well, first of all, to be the finance minister, you obviously have to be trusted by the prime minister, of course. Yeah. And so she served in that role. So let's take Mark and her side by side. Okay, she's been elected, re-elected, and probably re-elected.
True.
So she's got whatever.
Right.
Okay. Him, never. Okay. Now her, right? One to nothing so far, at least on that front, right? Okay. Now, so she is the most accomplished woman for the job who happens to be a woman. She is the most qualified. She's deputy prime minister. Okay. Now, the reason I think especially why we need her more than anything, because one of the issues which has percolated to the top, not only of Canada, but North America and the world, is women's issues. Okay, we can talk about them in Afghanistan. We can talk about them in the United States with the assaults on women's issues, the misogynistic president of the United States, the one who's been charged and as doing heinous things. I don't want to send Rick Moranis in to deal with that dude. I want to send in a strong, competent, whatever. Mark Carney, he's like a Frank McKenna. He's kind of like a banker, and we all know how to run a country, and I can see exactly what they did. They said the train's leaving the bus, Mark is the guy, so if you want to be on it, get on it. So the cabinet ministers who want to be in cabinet and stay on say, I better get on the train. Let's not think about it, let's just get on the train, because that's who they're telling us to support. Yeah. Well, Trump, regardless of the truth, is going to pin the decay of England because of Brexit all over him, whether it's true or not. Okay, people regret Brexit over there, and once they understood what the implications were for a lot of things, and there's a lot of backlash, and they wish they could do a vote again. I'm told over and over again, but it may not be. But anyway, so Trump is going to treat him like nothing, but he cannot treat Chrystia Freeland that way, because the women, he will. And
she knows it,
and she knows it.
To it already.
Exactly, he will, and that's his weakness. That's his weakness.
Backlash. You think he'll get backlash?
He'll get huge backlash.
Maybe, but
he will get huge.
He got elected. He already got elected.
He got elected.
Doing all those things.
Yeah, he did all those things.
Here's a couple of things I think she has going against her.
Okay.
The very first thing we just said.
Right.
He's going to attack her. Right. She already knows that he doesn't like her.
Right.
She said it publicly.
Right.
Right. And I mean, she's trying to take credit for the first NAFTA agreement that she did, and she beat him through that. Maybe she did. She's apparently a good negotiator.
He hates her.
But
she says she's nasty.
But when you talk about the feminist part of it, I think Trudeau's already spoiled her on that, because he has used it every step of the way and claimed that he's the feminist, and people are tired of hearing it.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I think he spoiled her on it. He's really spoiled her on that, I think, and like I think he's ruined her on it.
Well,
I don't think. I know. That's just my point of view.
My point is
that's just my point of view.
My point is if I was the coach of the team and said, I got two candidates I got right here in my arsenal. Who am I going to send in?
Yeah.
I want to send in the one he hates the most. You're not going to get to Trump by currying up favor to him. That's like the worst thing Trudeau did and Dominic LeBlanc did was go to Mar-a-Lago. That was a huge mistake. You set yourself up to get humiliated. Up until that point, I thought you should have stayed and fought and dig your heels in and fight for some causes that you had promoted. But instead, you went down there and you looked like an idiot, and then you come back with headlines about Canada being the 51st state and everybody's in an uproar and all of that. If you just stayed up where you were and just keep your powder dry, let him put on his show that you know he's going to put on, right? Instead of just jumping down there. But anyway, so now I'm 100% on board with him being gone. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So it does.
100%.
So it does look like the establishment of the Liberal Party, as Chrystia says it, is they want Carney.
This is it's a setup.
Yeah.
It's a setup. They brought him over. Right?
And they've been trying to get him in the center for
That was a setup. They
years.
knew he isn't just dropped over.
No.
Yeah.
No. He came back for a reason, and Trudeau probably knew, and he's prepping himself, and he's been briefing himself, and all
close contact.
corporate guys. I could just see Frank and everything, feeding them this stuff and that stuff.
Yeah.
And why not? I mean, that's his favorite. They did the same thing for Michael Ignatieff, right?
Yes.
I mean, he was a world-famous author from Harvard University, and if he came and led the Liberal Party, why, he would lead us to glorious victory again.
New Brunswick did it with Vickers. They found someone they wanted.
Right, Vickers, because he did his job.
Yeah,
make him premier.
So that's kind of the same thing.
And some good examples of no political experience.
Right.
It can be very hard, especially you take that level of prime minister, no political experience.
Right.
I know.
That's very challenging, I think.
She knows that every file that's going down, she knows what she stands for.
So very brilliant lady.
very brilliant
several
lady.
languages.
Right.
She's no slouch.
No.
But she's no politician.
I disagree, but well, that's a good one. You know, like, you know what I mean?
She doesn't come across. She doesn't seem
No.
to come across like
No.
Tone deaf, like to me.
I don't know. She just seems to.
But man, she doesn't. She's photographic memory type person. She sees stuff. She
Laser.
understands it. She knows it.
So what's
Otherwise, you wouldn't be finance.
Well, put it the way. Okay, just the thing with what's he going to do? He's just going to be polite.
Right.
And they're just going to bully the hell out of him. And they're going to make him look like an idiot. It's the way they do things with the media now. Fox is going to be all over. Fox goes all over Christian. It's him attacking a woman. You know what I mean? That it's just another one of their assaults on women. I mean, what they did to Harris and to Clinton. I mean, chanting at Republican things, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up.
But then he gets elected on that.
And then
so-
gets elected.
Right.
You know, it's the same as the chants they used years ago.
Next.
So
Go
Well, I
ahead.
was
You got a
just going to
question?
ask that. So there's a leadership. One of the two gets elected.
automatically prime minister.
Automatically prime minister. Kind of like is this? Do you think And then do we go directly to an election? Do they try to make the House go longer?
I think she has to decide that. She'll now, when we did it with Terry, I begged him to call an election, but he
Exactly.
wouldn't do it.
No.
Waited a year.
He waited a year, and that
was a
was killed him.
mistake.
Oh,
Yeah.
big mistake.
Yeah, let these guys get a little momentum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we don't know yet if they'll call an immediate election. The problem is that doesn't that create more uncertainty with the states if we go into an election? How successful will they be against Poilievre? Because Poilievre's quite a bit in the polls, although there's a bit of a bounce back happening now that Trudeau's gone. But
I don't think Poilievre yet has bonded with the people. I just like. I don't know if you've seen him like that one with him eating apples and talking to a reporter. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's abusive. And if like what he's doing, okay, he's copying Trump. Be rude to the reporters. Call them fake media. Accuse everyone of being woke. I mean, when did that word? I had to look up when I was accused of being woke. What does that mean? I thought it was a horrible accusation, like you're woke. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it means to be empathetic. So if you feel sorry for a widow because she lost her husband in a fire, you're woke. Or if you feel sorry because, somebody was in an accident, you're woke, because what it means is to be empathetic. I would think I want every politician to be woke, but it's used as a slur. And that was an American strategy. They're all woke. They're all woke.
sympathy, inclusion, compassion is a weakness.
Yes.
That's what they're doing, is criticizing.
And they're, I mean.
So it sounds like you kind of believe that the longer this goes on, the more people may have a negative impression of Poilievre, the Liberal leader. So is it wise for them now to maybe make a deal with the NDP and get it to October, so people have the summer to see Poilievre in the right light, or the light that they think they see?
I don't think I don't know what card I would.
That's the only way
Here's
for
the
them to
thing:
get to
if I was
October,
sitting
right?
down with Poilievre, I'd get off the negative.
Right.
I mean, when I ran in my politics, I never once criticized my opponent. Always praised them, thanking them for being in the game.
Well, that works in
right?
New Brunswick quite
and,
well.
And it does work quite well, and it's the way it should be. But when I start assaulting your character and your personality, and so I can disagree with you vehemently over something, but you don't have to carry it beyond that. But anyway, what's going on down there now? I feel so sorry for. I thought the Americans. I loved every president they ever produced since I was a child. Right from Eisenhower, Kennedy was a hero. Even Lyndon Johnson, I felt sorry for over the Vietnam War. Nixon, I really felt sorry. My God, he told a lie to say, I never heard about it, and he resigned over that. Think of this guy's doing 30 a minute. You know?
Not just him, but there's been a lot of politicians
lot
or
of
leaders over the
yes.
time that have got away with a lot worse.
So is that the issue for the next election in Canada, general election, is who best can
Yes.
protect Canada and counter
Absolutely.
Donald Trump?
Yeah.
And you think out of all of the names, that even three, if we said Poilievre, Carney, and Freeland, that Krista Freeland is the best position out of all of them?
Without a question.
And strategically, it might provide a weakness, and Trump gaffes or gets over.
He does not want Chrystia Freeland. You watch the internet now and watch all the stuff that's going to come over the American channels against her. Watch for Fox News saying crap about her. They're terrified of her. They don't want her because she neutralizes Trump like nobody else. First of all, she's super intelligent, number one. And number two, she is a woman, so she has a constituency. And a very appropriate constituency by virtue of the fact of his previous behavior. If it wasn't that, that issue wouldn't be of import, but it is.
What do you think about the state of the provinces right now in terms of Daniel Smith going down?
Awful.
And the premier seeming to be divided of some sort. What role did Justin Trudeau have in that? You know,
I don't know. I mean,
Or should
he was, well, first of all,
Or should he have?
he really was an idiot. I blame Dominic, really. I consider it the stupidest move I've ever witnessed. Do you remember?
to have Trudeau elected as prime minister? You mean?
No, to have gone down to Mar-a-Lago.
Daniel Smith.
Okay.
To go to Mar-a-Lago.
Okay,
Yeah.
remember when Trump got first elected and the guy he ran against, what was his name? Senator, whatever his name. Anyway, and he had previously criticized Trump, shouldn't be it, and then Trump set him up to make him think he was going to appoint him to vice president and had him come out to visit him, and then,
Right.
you know, humiliated him and
Kinda like
degraded
this
at
there,
him and,
yeah.
you know, and just used, and then just threw him away like a piece of trash. That's what the dude you're dealing with, right? He wants you to come and do that. In fact, probably what motivated them was, if you don't get your ass down here right now, I'm going to kick your ass. And what he did was he told him to get rid of Chrystia Freeland, and he came home and did it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm sure they
And
talked
then he
about her.
appointed Dominic, so he went down there to apply for the job. God, it's crazy.
And then laughed about it all.
And then laughed about it like it's a big joke. He embarrassed the country. He embarrassed the country. And Chrystia came back, and he came back, and then he fires Chrystia, and then she's supposed to be a good little girl. No way. She did the right thing. She
Yeah.
said, no, I'm walking out of this game. I'm standing up.
Yeah.
And that's what we need and want more than anything.
Yeah.
Now, do you think you would maybe you are thinking
sorry
about doing
if that
this?
worked out.
Is getting your Liberal membership and voting for at the
Oh, yeah,
the
you
leadership?
getting your
Is
Liberal
it-
membership
Are you
to
still
vote?
are you considering doing that? And
I don't think they'd let me be back in.
Well, they do have a habit lately.
I
Of
thought they
letting-
had quite a broad
Yeah.
thing there to be able to have anyone.
You
come
know,
and vote.
I have my opinion for no other reason than my opinion.
Right.
You couldn't offer me a job. You couldn't offer me an appointment. There's nothing I want.
Right.
So it's just my opinion. And in my old age, I got nothing else to do, so I like to write articles on Facebook and just tell
Yeah.
you what I think.
Yeah.
Just what I think, not...
That's why you're here.
Right,
to
I'm
have
not
what you-
copying it. I don't have an Instagram.
Or
I don't have an
agenda.
X account or a lovely studio. Thank you, but it's beautiful. I mean, but I do vent a bit once in a while. But thanks for letting me come and vent on your show.
Oh, yeah. That's
to
why
have
you're
you
here.
here.
That's why you're here.
Interesting
We want to hear what
information.
you're thinking. You
Yeah.
have a lot of history.
Oh.
Yeah.
You have a lot of history. One thing I was intrigued by was your ability to recruit candidates in the communities. And we talked about that one time. And you're like, you go down to a park bench, you sit down, you find out who's who. And too often these people seem to, from outside of your constituency up in the
Right.
Premier's office, they might think this one or that one's a good person, or Carney
Because
or
he might be a
Vickers,
mayor,
or
they might be this,
they have some
they might
sort
be
of
that.
credential on their name, but they don't know who really is the person in touch with the
Yeah.
community. And you talked about that one time with me, and I agree with you, actually. You know, it's like, get
Well, I always said, like, Dr. King was perfect for Fredericton South.
Right.
He just somehow had that. The universities, and all of that. Professional and all that. If you took him down to Queens North, he couldn't get elected, right? Now, they sent me down. My job the day I first met Doug Tyler was to go down and recruit the principal of the school, head of the Rotary, and something else. I can't remember his name.
In Minto?
The Minto School?
Was it a Minto?
Not Mel
Chipman, I
McKenzie.
think.
Or Chipman was it?
Chipman,
okay.
I think it was. And I stopped in to gas up at Doug Tyler's gas station.
Okay.
Okay? Because he was on the association, right? And while I'm gassing up, everybody's coming in and going, "Hi, Doug." And I had an Irving service station too. So I had my taxi stand in an Irving service. I had a 2-bay garage. So I had, I felt a connection. There. And the more I'm going with them, I'm saying, Doug, have you ever thought about it? Whatever. And I don't know if I planted the seed in him, but he did ultimately go. And I went down. I did get that other guy to run, but he got crushed by Doug at the nomination. So, and another one was Stuart Jameson. He was in a restaurant one day, and he asked me. He got laid off from a $6 an hour job, and he asked me if there was any jobs. I said, "We're not even in power. There's nothing we can do to help you, man. There's nothing I can do." But I had this one riding where I had difficulty, St. John Fundy, where Bev Harrison was. And he looked undefeatable, supposedly. And Stuart was unemployed, and he was living right in the middle of the riding. St. John Fundy is a little bit of St. John, St. Martin's, all of that, right? So he's rural, urban, that type of thing. Yeah. And I said, "Well, I know a job. You could run for the nomination of the Liberal Party in St. John Fundy." And he says, "I've never done that before. I've never been in politics." But I knew the way he talked and the way he was with people. I thought, you'd be a good politician. I think you really would. So I talked him into running, and he ran, and he won the nomination. He beat out a principal of a school by 4 votes, 88 to 84, and he went on to become one of the longest-serving members of the legislature.
So did he win in 03 or 06? 03 must have.
One he didn't run in, and one he came back. He had a kind of a...
He first got elected, though, with the...
Yeah, the 87 sweep, yeah.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
I see. Oh, way back
and
then.
Doug Tyler. And
Doug Tyler, all of them.
And they came back later on, the Sean Gray years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So to me, it felt like, there's, you get candidates who kind of sacrifice themselves for, to run. And they don't put anything into it, right? And then you get another one who steps up to the job, who says, "This is my best shot. I'm going to throw everything I got in," like an athlete would a game, or a musician, a concert pianist, anybody. It's a total game. If you're not, it's all or nothing.
Like the Olympics.
Right. Yes. You got to put yourself in it. You got to be on your game all the time. You cannot walk down the street drunk once.
Right.
Really. Charles will be right there with his camera, and it's going to flash all over.
You can't.
Or you can't make one verbal mistake.
Right.
One really horrendous verbal mistake.
Well, the bar is different now.
Okay, look at Elon Musk.
They do get away with it
He
now.
just did one salute, actually 2.
Yeah.
And look what that's going to do to his stock.
But I've been saying to people, you can't even tell the truth on social media now, and they think you're lying.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
it's a bit different there now, but
well, what a great discussion on the history of politics and the ins and outs of it. So we're going to take another short break and let our public service announcements happen there on our channel at CHCO on Bell and Rogers and Shaw Cable, and we'll be right back with you in a few moments.
Hi there, welcome back to the Carr Brothers Show, episode 133. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the 3 Carr brothers.
And we've had a great discussion with Jack MacDougall.
Yes.
And no stranger to New Brunswick, and quite a storied background and history that you have in politics and business.
Very gregarious, very
Wow.
animated,
Very shy.
Oh, I like
Very
it.
shy, yes.
Yes.
We love your opinions, though.
Oh,
they mean a lot to us.
It's been really, really
Something
good.
to chew on here.
We follow you on Facebook, and you've been putting opinions on Facebook here more frequently.
Yes.
And stirring the pot a little bit, getting your point out there, and it's been great to see and get the discussion.
Thank you.
It gives a really good opinion for people to consider. Let's talk about your book that you wrote called The Unemployed Taxi Driver.
Right.
And you worked on this, and I believe it was 2016, 2017.
2017 it was published.
Is
And
that you, Jack?
that is me, yeah.
Yeah, you look pretty good.
Hair.
40 years ago, man. Yeah.
So what's this book about?
Yeah, tell us.
Well, this is an amazing story. This building, if you look on the cover of it, Full Gospel Assembly, I walk by, that's on King Square in St. John, and I walk by that church every single day of my life practically, and I never once went in.
I was going to ask.
Yeah. They tried to recruit me, but I say, no, I'm a Catholic. Anyway, and I told you I was interested in theater, and we had done a play, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and I was Charlie Brown, and anyway, and I was in this theater group and all that. And one day I saw an ad in a newspaper that said this church was trying to sell a Wurlitzer organ. Anyway, whatever. So I'm telling my friend Susan, did you see there was an ad for a Wurlitzer organ? Don't they use that for theater or something like that? And she said, yeah. And then I said, well, the Full Gospel Assembly. And she said, what are you talking about? Get that, let me see the ad. And I'm like, well, no, anyway, so I get the ad, and then she's like, oh my God, that's theater artifacts from back, 100 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So she sent me over to investigate, and I found the theater. And I was like amazed. But now I didn't think about buying it or anything, but I went in and I explored it for hours. The organ wasn't any good, but I met with the church, and then I asked them if they would consider, all I asked them was, I just told them I loved their building, and they said, well, what do you mean? I said, would you consider selling it to me? Almost like a joke.
Yeah.
And somebody said it for $1 million. And then I said, well, I would buy it for $1 million. That turned their heads. And then they said, how much do you have? And I said, well, I don't have any, but I'll give you $1 down, and you just give me 1 year to raise the money. And we managed to talk them into taking the $1 down, and we got the 1 year. And this is the story of how we got the money. There was no government money at all. And we raised in a year $1,350,000. We bought the church, and then began the long, hard journey of restoring it, which took us 10 more years. The bulldozers nearly bulldozed it. The community was outraged. Anyway, the building had been gutted, and the community thought it was destroyed. And then we went back and kicked back at it again, and we got the job done. And today, it's one of the best performing arts centers in Canada. It's the #1 tourist attraction to St. John. But here's the history of it. St. John used to be the theater capital of the world, one of them. It was London, St. John, Boston, and New York as the ship sailed. And St. John had 5 major performing arts centers. And they all burned to the ground in the Great Fire of 1877. So by 1913, people were saying, we got to get back into the thing. And these guys, Louis B. Mayer and all these guys helped to get this theater back up. And then they went to Hollywood and invented Hollywood. Donald Sutherland got his start in this theater. Walter Pidgeon, Hollywood's #1, bigger than Brad Pitt would ever dream of being, was from St. John on that theater. That's where they started. But it was sold as a church in 1957. So we successfully raised it, turned it into a theater, and I went back to St. John, and they had a ceremony where they honored all the past presidents, and they didn't include me. And I'm like, what? Are you serious? And I thought it was a bad joke, but no, they had the plaque up, and then I felt like I was really getting gaslighted major. I didn't know what to do about it. I had a bit of a meltdown. I was like, you're forgetting this, you're forgetting that, but I'm going to say God is merciful because he gave me the path back. Write the book. Tell the story yourself. Don't let anybody else write the story for you. And I did, and we've sold probably 2,000 of them now.
Wow.
And people do love that story. I've had people tell me, I'm never lending this book. I love it. You can get it on Amazon.com, by the way.
Okay.
It's got a 5-star rating.
It's called The Unemployed Taxi Driver.
Yeah, The Unemployed Taxi Driver. I
it's
think you'll love it.
The
And
story
if
of,
you love St. John or have any love of history or theater or politics, I had several American politicians tell me that it was the best organizational campaign book they ever had. How to organize a campaign.
Grassroots.
Yeah, and one of them in there is, let me see
Yeah.
the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And here's another thing I'll tell you. People can say to me, open the book to any page and start reading and see if it's not an interesting story. Would you like me to try?
Yeah,
How much
sure,
time have we got?
Yeah, we've got about 5 minutes.
Let me try.
Okay.
Yeah, where'd your glass? There you
Name a page.
go. Oh, 77.
77.
The Paul Coffey's hockey number. How's that?
Sounds good.
I think.
This is about Elsie Wayne. Okay?
wow.
And there
Okay.
you go.
And I'm meeting with her after we won 58-0. I've come back to St. John
Right.
to find out
After
what's
Frank.
going on with the theater now.
After
We've won
Frank does the
58-0.
sweep, right.
And then you own the theater by the
We owned
late
it.
by 87.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but we
So
didn't.
now you're at the Premier's office.
Yeah,
working
well,
with the
well,
Premier's
we're
office
getting
and-
ready to form government.
Right.
Yeah, we'd already won, but this is November.
Okay.
And so, but you've raised the 1.3 million by this point, by 87.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Years before.
Okay.
Okay.
She was always fighting corruption and the open waste of taxpayers' dollars at whatever level she served. She fought the entire House of Commons from giving themselves a 20% raise, saying, if for anyone, it should be for the next batch of politicians. We said we would work for that. Now get to work and stop all the foolishness, she would say. People loved Elsie, or hated her. You know the kind. The ones who would clench their fists, curl their arms, tighten up and say, drat, foiled again. Another time she could have been prime minister. She first came to prominence in the mid-70s, fighting for municipal action on a flooding issue in her community of Glen Falls. She became a folk hero, regularly calling CFBC's super popular 2-hour radio talk show, Talk of the Town. The host, Bob Lockhart, was generous and gave her lots of airtime. That was regrettable because she would go on to become mayor. She got elected to council and she would defeat him years later in a heads-up battle. To that point in St. John's long history, no mayor was ever re-elected, let alone a woman. That all changed with Elsie.
Yes.
So
cool.
there's a pace to the book. That's
Yeah,
all I'm
yeah.
saying. And so if you have a memory of who Elsie was or anything.
And Bob
And
Lockhart.
Bob Lockhart.
Lockhart.
So people go through it and they can remember streets, names, places, times, and so that's why it's, I would have loved. I did start writing the story for John Kenny, and I would have loved to, but I talked to Michael, and I felt like he is well known in writing circles, and he has a much better. And I don't need to write a book for me.
Right.
I want justice for John.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And there's not much time left. He could be dead tomorrow, right? From old age, for God's sakes. I mean, we were in our 20s back then.
Yeah.
So, but yes, this was a great thing. And as I always said, I went to I was teaching a class in St. John High, and the teacher was quite giddy because she was, oh, he's the guy who saved the Imperial and all that. And they're going, well, when were you born? It opened in 1913. They had no idea that from 1957 to 1994, it did not operate as a performing arts center, right? They can't imagine it ever operated. So it kind of got evaporated. That's what I'm saying,
Yeah, from
right?
history
And in fact, that's the way I opened the story with, I didn't know anything about the history of it. Why should I expect anybody else to
Right.
know the history of it? Especially if nobody told them So there's
Otherwise.
my entrance into the story.
And
Glad you came on with
Yes.
us.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad
Thank you very much.
You talked
Thank you.
about your current, but your contribution to New
Yeah.
Brunswick, and you know from us, we appreciate
Yeah.
what
Thank you
you've
so
done
much.
for the province. It's been a lot of work and a lot of involvement, and we thank you for being friends with the Carr brothers.
Oh, my pleasure. Total. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jack MacDougall, everyone. And we want to thank our viewers for watching. Good night.
Good night.